Minister Mentor, what are your thoughts on productivity today, and have your views changed in any ways over the decades?
No, I don't think the basic principles have changed. I was impressed by the Japanese worker and the way they cooperated with each other and with the company to increase productivity. This was in the 1970s, and they were rebuilding Japan. So I got in touch with the productivity movement, and there was an elderly gentleman called Mr. Oshii. I persuaded him to come to Singapore and have a look. And he was an austere man. I looked at me to see whether we were serious. I said, yes, we are serious. He said, well, this is a marathon without a finishing line. It's not just a worker doing his best, finding ways to reduce unnecessary operations, but cooperating with his fellow workers and cooperating with the bosses to improve the output with the same manpower and the same machines. Finally, he agreed to set up or to guide our productivity center. And after a few years, I asked a Japanese company with the same equipment in Japan and the same equipment in Singapore. I asked him, what's the difference between your productivity? And he said the Singapore company with the same number of workers, if not more, was about 70 to 80% of his Japanese worker. So I said, why? He said several reasons. When the Singapore graduate comes in, he comes in as an officer and he doesn't rise from the ranks, so he doesn't know what it is like to be down at the bottom of the scale. A Japanese graduate starts right at the bottom. He goes up to a temple for his orientation, where they bond with the company. Their future is tied up with the company's future. Those were in the days of lifetime employment. And so they take their job seriously because it's a lifetime job. And when they come down to the factory, they start right at the bottom. Not forever, probably for 6 months, and they climb up. So at every level, they understood what they were going to ask the people to do. So there's a different bonding that takes place between the man who's ordering them and the man who's being ordered, and he knows that that man knows what he has to do when he's ordered to do that. So in Singapore, that doesn't happen. It goes right up. He starts off at the top. You send him down to the factory floor. He feels demeaned. And he added another important factor was the cooperation between the workers. When the worker goes to the toilet or is ill, his neighbor will stand in for him and cover up his work as best as he can. Or 2, 3 neighbors will cover up. Not in Singapore. It's not my job. It's left unattended. So all these little things that added up to create a culture. So Japanese productivity is really a culture of Japanese companies, of how they orientate them, taking them up to a temple up in the mountains, a few days, maybe 1 week, prep them up. Your future is with this company. Company does well, you will be doing well. Company goes down, you'll be looking for another job, and you're starting in a new company, you'll be starting right at the bottom. So it says, uncertainly, it's not possible for us to recreate that in Singapore. We haven't got that kind of culture in our population. No. It says, you try. And we've been trying ever since. We have to go more the Western way and less the Japanese way, because we're English speaking. People read material in English. They read all this Harvard Business Management magazines. So it's a Western approach. Innovation, technology, leadership. Gallup says if you've got good leadership, then 30% at least of your workers are engaged. And they did a survey here, and they said only 25% are engaged. But the difference may be 5%, but in fact, it spills over to the other workers. An engaged worker is somebody who takes an interest in the overall performance, not just in his performance. So I think we've got to find our own route, try and adapt the Western culture to Confucianist attitudes and make it work. The Western approaches technology, innovation, and high value added products. So you move up the ladder, and more machinery, more robots, more computers, and your productivity goes up. But in the Japanese system, they also have robots, they also have computers. But somehow at the end of the day, their productivity is more than ours. So you can see they produce zero defect TV screens. Guarantee if it goes wrong 1 year, I'll give you a new one. And until recent times when Toyota overexpanded, they were defect-free cars. Can the Americans equal that? No, I don't think so. Can we equal that? Very unlikely. Can we be competent? Yes. But do we have that culture? No. And that is a problem. But we can make up in many other ways. And ours is a more Western orientation. So we try to make Singapore a special place, livable, attractive, yet investments, safe, clean, infrastructure, very good, communications good, aircraft, container ships from all over the world. These are things which support productivity. They're not productivity as such, but without that you cannot grow. And in a sense, that's where the Japanese are lacking. So for instance, they try to become a financial center, but they don't have an English-speaking population. They don't embrace the foreign workers who go there. We are English-speaking. Many Western executives, given a choice between a posting in Japan and Singapore, would prefer to come to Singapore. They're part of the society, they mix, they speak English, and everyone speaks English. So we make up in other ways, which has to be the Singapore way. We have to build up a Singapore brand. I'm not good at memorizing all these acronyms, but our productive movement gave me a sheet of paper that says Singapore brand. Well, we try. Now, where is it? Yeah, Singapore brand. Says, well, we go in for complex manufacturing. So nobody thought we could do aircraft engines. Now we do aircraft engines. That's high value added. We are doing it for Boeing and Airbus. Then we have R&D for Procter & Gamble, 2,000 people in the Asia Pacific HQ for R&D. Then we have Unilever, 1,000 people in Asia Pacific for Emerging Markets HQ. Now they won't go to Japan because it does not welcome that sort of thing. I mean, you have 2,000 expats and foreigners in Japan. You'll have to fraternize amongst yourselves. You're not going to. It's not in the habit to invite you to their homes because they feel discomforted. They've got small homes and they sit on the floor and you don't sit on the floor and so on. So culturally, they do not make it easy for people to adapt to them. Culturally, we do. And we have access to foreign talent. You can bring them in anywhere at any time from any part of the world. You got R&D talent, and now we have R&D infrastructure, top of the line. Biomedical services. We have produced many PhDs coming back to do research. And there are certain areas where we have become specialists in, like water, new water, desalination, at half the cost of the usual desalination methods. So these are innovations we created. I'm not sure we can patent the membrane technology, but I think we are leaders in that field, and we've got all the leading water companies here to cooperate with us. Then we have urban solutions like clean energy, transport management with our ERP. In other words, what the Singapore EDB wants us to be known as is we are future ready. I really don't know what that means. I think they believe we are ready to take on anything new and adapt to it quickly. And that's an advantage. And well, we've got to attract and develop leadership talent, which everybody has to do. And for Asian companies who want to internationalize, Singapore is a base from which they can scout the world and go forth, because we've got a global outlook which not very many countries in the region have. So these are areas where we have made up for what is special in Japan, which unfortunately I don't think we can recreate. We can't change the culture of the people so easily.
Thank you, ma'am.